Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villeries Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villeries provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villeries Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969. Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House has been shucking here since 1979. Located at 3117 21st Street in Metairie, Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House offers raw, fried, and grilled oysters, as well as a range of Cajun and Creole dishes. Enjoy a dozen with a smile.
Good evening and happy Thanksgiving and welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we talk a lot about all the home teams out there, the New Orleans Saints, the New Orleans Pelicans, LSU Tigers, Tulane Green Wave, and also the Bayou Classic, which will be here in New Orleans on Saturday. To break it down for you, we got sports directors galore today on the program. Sports director at WLAE-TV, Doug Mouton. Sports director at Fox 8 Sports, Juan Kincaid, join us on the program tonight. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being with us as always. I like to always start off letting the folks know a little bit about what you guys got going on at your respective stations. Doug, why don't you take it first?
Yeah, look, football season has been crazy. Here's what happens during football season when the Saints win, when LSU's winning. We're doing the prep show, and Juan does one too. Right. We do the prep show every Friday night. We do 4th Down on 4 every Sunday. And then when the Saints and LSU are winning, we've added 5 LSU specials during this football season. And now that the Saints are winning, what happens is every day, instead of just filling sportscast, they want Saints in the news portion of the news too. So at this point in football season, and believe me, we all love it this way. Yes. It's so much more fun to cover the teams when they're winning. They're all winning. So right now, football season is coming at us nonstop.
Yep, and of course, you can always check out Doug on the news, doing the newscast as well, the sportscast. Juan, welcome back. Good to see you, my friend.
Nice to be here again.
You guys never stop at Fox 8 as well.
We don't. I'm sure we're just like Doug in that when they add more stuff to us, we get to add to our staff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Same way, yeah. I mean, it's nonstop. And Doug is right. You know, it's good the team is winning because it makes it easier to do more stuff and more fun to do more stuff because the players want to talk to you. We do shows, extra shows outside the newscast, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. And so it's just that way. That's the way it is now because the fans want more. You know, we were talking about in the office today. There's not a bigger market in the country that's getting better ratings than the Saints right now.
Right.
Everyone wants to see the Saints. They're the best team in the NFL. They're playing fun football. They want to talk about them. Everything is about the Saints. They're planning the Thanksgiving turkey around the Saints.
Yes.
I mean, that's what we're doing right now. And so it's fun to bring that to the viewers as well.
Yeah, it is. And it's fun to do when the teams are winning.
Absolutely.
Fun to
Way
cover,
more fun.
Fun to cover when the teams are winning, right?
They want to talk to you.
Yeah.
They don't mind talking to you.
Everybody's in a good mood.
Everybody's in a good mood, as we are today on Thanksgiving. Let's start off with the unstoppable offense. It seems like a new wrinkle every week, Doug.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, when you look at this offense, you talk about elite players on this offense. To me, the biggest difference in what the Saints have now and what they've had in the past is they've had Drew Brees. If you look over his career, he's had one weapon make it to the Pro Bowl before last year. That was Jimmy Graham, got there 3 times. He had good weapons for years. Now he's got Mike Thomas, who is an elite wide receiver. I think in the top 2, but at worst in the top 4. Alvin Kamara, who I think is in the top 2 of running backs, and certainly in the passing game, he is an elite option in the passing passing game, and then an offensive line that's given up the least sacks in the NFL. I think Teron Armstead's an elite player. I think Ryan Ramczyk's close to it. But what Brees has in 2 elite weapons, he's never had more than one. And for years, he had none. He's seeing the field. He's unbelievably accurate. He's getting protected. And he has 2 elite weapons. And you saw it this week with Philadelphia. So much double coverage gets rolled to one of those guys or the other guys that no one's covering Traquan Smith.
Right.
There's so many options right now, and it is all working in a big way.
And Juan, what I love is the fact that every single week, Peyton seems to come up with something new with this offense as well.
Think back to the Atlanta game last year when Alvin Kamara went out. They had no idea what to do and how to counter that and win that football game. Now, and the last game is a perfect example, the Eagles tried to dictate how they wanted the Saints to play, and taking Kamara out of the game, taking Michael Thomas out of the game. And what did they do? They said, all right, no problem. We'll go to our other options. A lot of guys you don't really hear much about. And you got Traquan Smith catching 15 balls for 140-some yards. You've got Dan Arnold catching a diving ball in the middle. You've got Austin Carr catching his first touchdown. The point is, this team is so much more dangerous this year than they were in the past to me because they're able to adjust on the fly and still be successful. They're scoring 38 points a game, which is ridiculous. Yes. And that is a part of what the NFL is all about this year. But I just see this football team as being complete. I think the defense still concerns me a little bit in the secondary, opposite of Marshawn Lattimore, but they've gotten better as well. When we're talking about Sheldon Rankins being maybe the second or third best defensive player on this team, that tells you something about where they are right now and that they're a complete football team that can get after you on defense. And in the NFL right now, we saw it with the Rams and Chiefs. We don't need you to stop them every time. We want you to stop them sometime. Give us a couple extra possessions. That's all the Saints need. The Eagles game was over in the first 17 points. It was over because they got a couple extra possessions because of a turnover. So this is a special Saints football team. And I kind of jumped on board in the office on Sunday saying, you know what, I don't see anybody being this team. The only team I think has a chance, maybe the Rams, and I think the Rams can beat them in the Dome because they can match them point for point. But no one else in the NFL, I think, outside of the Chiefs, can beat the Saints, especially in the NFC.
Guys, and when you look at the NFL right now, and you look at the Saints, and look at the Saints defense, which has been much maligned, playing much better now. But you look around the NFL, they're not playing any defense except if you're in maybe Chicago, right?
Yeah, no, the defense is out, and the offense is in, and quarterback play is in. By quarterback rating, which is the one all-encompassing stat for quarterbacks, right now, Jared Goff is having the 9th best season in NFL history, and he's 3rd best this year. Pat Mahomes, who has been unbelievable, is having the 5th best season in NFL history right now. And, of course, Drew Brees is not only having the best season in NFL history, he is way ahead of the pace of anybody else. 25 touchdowns, 1 interception. It is unbelievable that not just what Brees is doing, but those 3 guys, and I think it's kind of neat that the 3 guys who are leading this crazy offensive surge, you've got 2 young guns, and then the one guy who's the best so far this year is Drew Brees. So it's the 39-year-old leading the future of the NFL forward.
Which kills me because every summer we go into the offseason and fans are like, oh, it's time to get rid of Drew Brees. Who are we going to draft as a quarterback? And I'm thinking, man, wait, this guy's completing 77% of his passes right now. He holds the record for year of completion. He's going to kill that this year. There's been games where he's thrown for almost 90%, which is ridiculous. He's 39 years old. Back at the Greenbrier, he joked about playing the 45, but I'm telling you what, I will take a Drew Brees with less of an arm strength over any strong quarterback that can't hit 60% of his passes any day because what he lacks in arm strength, he makes up in wisdom. He knows where he's going with the ball before he snaps it, 10 seconds before he snaps it. He's looking over him. And it was a perfect example in the Eagles game. He went to the line, looked at the defense, did a kill. Looked at they started moving around, did another kill. I was talking to Deuce McAllister about that in the office. He goes, yeah, he went to the line with 4 plays in his head. He's in charge of killing the play, going to the next one, killing it in, going to the next one. Aaron Brooks didn't do that. Jake Delhomme couldn't do that here. I don't know many quarterbacks in the league that can do that, Doug, that can look at a defense and change the play 3 times and everyone's on the same page. I mean, I think he's playing at a different level this year, the 39-year-old quarterback. Is it his best year as a pro? Stat-wise, 25 touchdowns, 1 interception, maybe so. But I just think he's such a smarter quarterback now than he was in 2009. And age is just a number for him right now. I think he's playing amazing football.
Piggyback on that if you would.
Yeah, I think, and I think Juan's 100% right. To me, the biggest difference in what he's done this year is that he's always been crazy accurate. That's always been there. He is seeing the field, and I think there's two real reasons. He is seeing the field in a way that even he never has. He is seeing everything, pre-snap, during the play. He talked about it a few weeks ago when they played the Rams, the biggest play of the game, when he hit Mike Thomas on the 70-yarder to put the game away. He said it was basically Thomas and Kamara. He looked at Kamara, he was being doubled. I see Thomas, single coverage, bang, go. Touchdown. So two things are leading to that. He's crazy comfortable because the offensive line has been so good that he's not worried about getting it. He took one hit the entire game against Philadelphia. That's one more than he takes in practice every day. One hit for an entire football game. And then two, I think those two weapons, Kamara and Thomas, give him weapons that are so good that if you're not rolling extra coverage to them, he can go to them. Nobody can play them one-on-one. You have to roll extra coverage to those guys. And when you roll extra coverage to those guys, it was Ben Watson 2 weeks ago. It was Traquan Smith last week.
Ben Watson wasn't even targeted in this last game.
Wasn't it because they didn't need to?
They didn't need to.
They didn't need to. Whoever they're rolling, if they don't roll to Thomas and Kamara, he's going to go to them every time. If they do roll extra than them, he's got 8 other guys he can hit.
Eric, I think it's crazy that the one thing we don't really talk about is maybe the most important factor in all this. The offensive line has been absolutely fantastic. It is, to me, it's the best offensive line in the league, and it shows you they're the best because they just didn't have Teron Armstead, who's arguably their best offensive lineman. They put in Jamon Bushrod. They don't miss a beat. 9 sacks this year.
Right.
You compare that to some other guys in the league like Eli Manning, who's been sacked 36 times, a league high. I mean, he's staying upright. He's staying clean in the pocket. And when that happens and teams are still sending blitzes not getting to him, they have no chance.
Yeah, and sacks are the one stat. Sacks allowed as a team are the one sort of sneaky tell for NFL teams. Like the Colts are great at not giving up sacks. You wonder why suddenly they've come on and are winning games. Almost any NFL quarterback, the way defensive rules are such, the way receivers can't get hit, if you can keep almost any NFL caliber quarterback clean, he's going to kill you. And Drew Brees has done that times 10.
You know, guys, I go back to kind of the first question that we had when you talk about the new wrinkles every week. I was reading an article recently about how when Brees came to New Orleans, Peyton saying that, again, he wanted to build this offense around Brees, the things that he wanted to do. And, of course, now you see this offense every single year expanding, new things, to the point now Brees, he knows like the back of his hand.
Yeah. Well, I think Peyton's had to adjust with what he has in the quarterback.
No doubt.
I mean, he's got a 39-year-old quarterback. The numbers don't lie on him. He's still throwing the ball very well. He's still as accurate, if not more accurate than ever before. But he had to give him some pieces. They can't keep winning football games by outscoring teams and hoping to get the last possession and score the game-winning touchdown. They had to give him some help on offense. They had to give him some help on defense specifically. Yes. And I think that Sean Payton has recognized what he has. Again, we don't talk about Taysom Hill. He's not going to be the starting quarterback of this team anytime soon when Brees is gone. He's not that role, but they have found a way to use him that gives him an advantage. And sometimes it's having Drew Brees playing receiver, where he's eventually going to catch a ball, and let Taysom be the quarterback. I mean, Sean Payton has been a mastermind in terms of getting the most out of his players. He knows what he's getting from Drew Brees every week, but it's the other guys around him that have really stepped up this year and have made Brees the quarterback he is this year.
Yeah, I think Nick Underhill with The Advocate had a great article that came out this week about the number of formations the Saints have used. Yes. And look, Taysom Hill hasn't been, he's not Kamara, he's not Thomas, he's not Armstead to this offense, he's not Max Unger, he's not Ryan Ramczyk, but he's been an important piece. But I think what he has done, and bear with me on this one, what I think he has done is he has made coming up with offense more fun for Sean Payton.
Absolutely.
You are seeing more innovation this, and I think it's because, look, Sean Payton's had the same quarterback for a long time, and Brees is great, but there's not enormous variance in what Brees is doing now than 5 years ago or 7 years ago. But you add Taysom Hill to the mix, and now Payton, who is a guy that wants to come up with unique offensive wrinkles and do different things, he's got a guy that lets him flex that muscle. And I think Taysom Hill, you see the number of formations is crazy that they're running out of. I think Sean Payton's having more fun coming up with offense, and I think that's translated all the way down. And I think Taysom Hill, even though I'm not saying he's the difference in this offense, that would be a gross exaggeration, but he's a difference in making things, I think, more fun for Sean Payton.
He's made a difference in the offense, though, and I liken it to the Andy Reid situation. He was in Philadelphia for so many years, did a great job there, got him to the Super Bowl, but after a while, the voice gets stale.
Yeah.
And so now he's moved on to Kansas City, where what he did in Philly is transferred to Kansas City. It seems new, and they're throwing the ball over the place and playing good football. Sean Payton had to reinvent himself a little bit, and Taysom Hill has helped him reinvent himself a little bit. Yeah. I would imagine that when Sean gets done playing a game like against the Eagles, where they scored 48 points, and the next thing you know, he's going back into the locker room and saying, you know what? He gets like drawn in the sand. Next time we can do this with this. We can do that.
Here's a wrinkle off of that.
It's almost like playground football a little bit, because they're executing everything he draws up so well, especially with Taysom.
Let's talk about the defense. 12 turnovers in the last 7 games. Obviously helped by, again, the prolific offense. A lot like 2009, where, again, you get a big lead, then all of a sudden the opposing offense has to abandon their game plan. Talk about this defense.
Well, I think Marshawn Lattimore has really come on in the last 2 or 3 weeks. You know that when you don't hear his name or see him for the entire game.
Same thing with Eli Apple, right?
Correct. No doubt. But when Lattimore is playing the way Lattimore played for most of last year and is for the first 2 weeks, you can roll more help to the other side of the field. Lattimore has stepped up. Juan said it. Sheldon Rankins have stepped up in a huge way. Demario Davis, the Saints stopped for one reason, and it's to stop the run. Pro Football Focus has him listed as the #1 run-stopping linebacker in the NFL. He does one thing. He does it extremely well. I think Alex Anzalone has come on. He's right at the point where he's played about 1 year's worth of games, and you're seeing. And I still think, although his numbers are not what they were last year, I still think Cam Jordan is the single biggest difference maker on this defense. He is, to me, to this defense, what Reggie Bush was from 06 and through the Super Bowl. Reggie Bush, on every play when Reggie Bush did not catch the ball, he was changing the way defenses played you to open things up for everybody else. That's what Cam Jordan's doing right now. His numbers aren't spectacular. He's not putting up the gaudy stats, but he is occupying so many guys that's why Rankins is having success.
I'm just so glad that Sheldon Rankins ended up being the next Cedric Ellis. Because a guy with so much hype coming in here and didn't do anything. But I think Rankins has been fantastic. I think he's given them something they weren't quite expecting this year. I mean, we thought he'd be pretty good, help plug some holes there, but we always were concerned about this team's ability to stop the run, and they're doing a fantastic job, #1 in the league. Cam Jordan has continued to be what Cam Jordan has been for this football team, which is their best all-purpose defensive player. I mean, I still don't think he gets enough credit in the NFL. He's not listed among the top players. In other words, if you're having to draft a defensive ends, he's not going to be the 5th or 6th guy taken. He may be thought about, even though he should be up in the top 5. I just think he's a fantastic football player who enjoys playing the game. I think Demario Davis, you're right. He has been exactly what they hoped he would be, a tackling machine. He's not Jonathan Vilma-esque, but he's a second level of Jonathan Vilma, which is not a bad place to be. I'd like to see more out of Marcus Williams in the secondary. I think he's coming. But I think they've started to solidify things on the right side of that defense, opposite of Marshawn Lattimore. I think Eli Apple has helped. I think P.J. Williams has played better over the last couple of weeks. I think Ken Crawley is out of the mix, but he's still a guy they can rely on a little bit to be decent. I think this defense is not a world beater. But I think in the NFL today, you don't have to be. If you can get your offense, this offense, 1 or 2 extra possessions, that's the difference in the game most times.
Yeah, and look, the one thing, I agree with everything Juan said, and the one thing about this defense, Marcus Davenport was starting to flash what they thought he could do. 2 sacks against the Vikings. When he comes back and the pass rush gets a little bit better, look, I read something today, all these NFL power rankings, right? And so I was spotting around a few, ESPN, Yahoo Sports, they all have the Saints #1. I get that. And the Yahoo one said maybe they peaked too soon. And I think that is 100% wrong. I think this defense can still get better. When Davenport comes back, and I think I agree, they still haven't totally integrated Eli Apple. Marcus Williams hasn't done the things we think he's going to do this year. I think the defense is going to get better. I know it will when Davenport gets back. I don't think this team has peaked at all yet. I think in the last 2 weeks they have just started to hit the peak, but that could be a 10-week run.
I think what bothers me about the whole peak too soon thing, people talk about that, if you don't peak early and you start out losing, we've seen this team's history when they start out slow. They don't do well recovering. Give me peaking early and let me handle the back end.
Right. Guys, when you look at this team right now, some are saying it's the best in the NFL. What do you believe?
The Saints, right? Oh, no question about it. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Look, the defense, look, if you follow the Saints, you know it's not about the offense. The offense is going to score a boatload of points. Right now on pace to be the most in NFL history. Philadelphia got the ball 5 times in the first half this week. 1 touchdown, 3 punts, and an interception.
Right.
If the Saints defense does that every week, they won't lose again until next season.
Yeah.
They are without question to be the best team in football. Obviously got to keep everybody healthy. Obviously you have to keep moving forward. But right now, everyone has them as the number 1 team. If you don't, you're wrong.
I think the only team that I think should challenge them as being number 1 are the Rams, based on what they have on that front 4.
Right.
That front 4 has not played the way you expect them to over the last 3 weeks. I mean, giving up big points to the Saints, giving up big points to the Chiefs, obviously. But I think their front 4 makes them a challenger to be the best team in the league, and they can score with the Saints. Losing Cooper Kupp is going to hurt them because they don't have as many weapons receiving-wise. I think they have more known weapons, having Brandon Cooks and Woods over there, than the Saints do, or they've just got Thomas. And Sean McVay is a younger version of Sean Payton, in my opinion. He's the next coming, a good play caller. I think where the advantage for me is Drew Brees, because he's been through all the wars that their quarterback is going to start going through if they keep him healthy.
To me, the biggest fear is not the opponents that are in front of them, it is staying healthy. Injury, again.
Of course.
Because they look like they're a very good team, and they have some decent depth, but you want to get to the point where, again, you start getting decimated in one particular area.
Well, look, and the Saints got lucky a couple of weeks ago when Teron Armstead went down in Cincinnati. He is one guy. And look, you saw the Saints. If you watch the Saints, there was one play in the first quarter. It was a 3rd and 4, and Keith Kirkwood chips the pass rusher on the outside, then cuts across the field, catches a first down. The Saints did a lot to roll extra help to Jermon Bushrod, ran the other way a lot. You obviously don't want to be one-handed as you get down the playoff stretch. And they wouldn't be totally one-handed with Bushrod, but they're obviously a lot more two-dimensional or three-dimensional with Teron Armstead. So I thought they got great news coming out of Cincinnati when Armstead, it was not the shoulder which he had separated. It was a pec injury. Right. So he's going to be back in a month or so, and as unbelievable as he is, kind of Wolverine-esque, I'd be surprised if it was that long. You're going to get Armstead back, but there are a few linchpins you can't lose. Right. You can't lose Brees, obviously. You can't lose Kamara. You can't lose Thomas. You can't lose Cam Jordan. You can't lose Lattimore. Right. You got a few guys that would be really hard to replace. Yeah, you got to stay, but that goes for everybody. The Rams lose Todd Gurley, and it's not the same team. Of course.
Well, I think that where they can't afford to lose anybody else in that secondary. I think that's the one area where they're the thinnest, especially at cornerback. And you're right, if Marshawn Lattimore goes out, then your corners all of a sudden, P.J. Williams and Eli Apple are,
ordinary quickly.
So that's the one, because there aren't any great cornerbacks on the market out there. If they were, they'd be on teams right now. I think that's the one area I'm concerned about. I think offensive line, you can't get to the point where you're having to all of a sudden move Ramczyk and Pete around and to fill holes that are more important. They have to stay solid in the guard position and center. Keep guys out of Brees' face. He gets rid of the ball fast enough with guys coming around the edge. So, for me, the secondary is the one area where they can't afford to lose any cornerbacks. Otherwise, it'd be difficult to replace.
It's Atlanta tonight on a short week. Your thoughts, Doug?
Oh, I love the Saints' chances. I'm going to say that every week from here on out. They need a couple of stops. I don't think Atlanta can even begin to consider stopping the Saints. I think the Saints could score 4. Look, against Philadelphia, that they could have, if the game had been close, they could have scored 60 easily if they had needed to.
Philly's a much better defense than Atlanta.
And Philly's a much better defense than Atlanta. Exactly. I think the Saints score at will. They get a few stops. I think it's a couple of touchdowns ahead in the third quarter. They pull away and win. I don't think Atlanta can stay with them.
I don't think that Atlanta can stay with them. I agree with you on that one. But I also don't think the Saints are going to be surprised this time. They got caught off guard by Ridley last time. Ridley ate them up.
Yes, he did.
He really did. That's not going to happen this time because I think the Saints are aware of the other players they have. What has helped Atlanta is Julio Jones is finally starting to come on a little bit. I don't think they throw the ball at him enough in touchdown situations. I think that's on the offensive coordinator there and Matt Ryan. He's your best receiver. They don't target him enough. But I think the Saints are better prepared to face him this time around. I think they're getting better pressure with their front four, which will help that secondary.
And look, Matt Ryan is going through what Drew Brees went through for those 3 bad years with the Saints a few years ago. Matt Ryan is having a great year.
He is.
Matt Ryan's year right now is top 20 in NFL history. Right now, it's like 5th best in the NFL this year.
Right.
But Matt Ryan's having a great year, doing a lot right. You saw it the first game against the Saints, but without a defense, he's pressing and doing a lot of the things that happened to Brees 3-4 years ago.
Well, they might get Debo Jones back as well, and that's a huge deal for them. He's their best defensive player. He makes a difference in the middle of that defense.
No doubt. Guys, let's shift gears before we catch a break. Bayou Classic this weekend. Southern Grambling, always a big game.
Grambling has owned the game the last few years. I love what Grambling does. It's been a fun game. These are 2 quality teams. They're both playing really well right now. I like Grambling. I like what they've done over the last few years.
I think it's an interesting game always because there's always something riding on the outcome. And this year, the winner of the game wins the West and plays Alcorn State in the SWAC Championship. I think it's what you want if you're a Southern or Grambling fan. I hope that the crowd comes into the Dome again this year. It begins it's kind of the ending of a very big week of football in town with the Saints starting off, high school playoffs reaching the 3rd round, some of the quarter semifinals, and then ending up with the Bayou Classic. What better city to be in right now for football, and the weather's going to be fantastic too. So I mean, it's going to be great.
And it's an event. It's so much more than just a football game.
It's a great week.
Battle of the Bands. I mean, so many things.
All of that. And then LSU plays Saturday night with, I still think, a really good chance to get to the Sugar Bowl. Plus, Tulane plays Saturday morning with a chance to get bowl
stop getting ahead in the show.
It is,
He's trying to host the show.
You're the one who said it's a great weekend. It really is.
We're going to put a harness on these guys for a few seconds. We're going to take a quick break, hear from our underwriters. We'll come back. We'll talk LSU. We'll talk Tulane. We'll talk Pelicans. Doug Mouton, Juan Kincaid are our guests tonight. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We'll be right back.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Tonight, Doug Mouton of Channel 4 Sports, Juan Kincaid of Channel 8 Sports, both sports directors. Let's give them their props. We forgot to mention, Fairgrounds opening this week as well, right?
Fairgrounds.
Thanksgiving?
At the Fairgrounds.
Come on.
Yeah.
It is quite a week, no doubt. LSU 9-2, 42-10 over Rice, 7th ranked in the college football playoff poll, and again, 8th in the AP and coaches poll. I've said it all week long. This is a playoff game for the Tigers against A&M.
Yeah, no question. And look, here's the thing. Scott Rabelais with The Advocate took the results from 16 different national writers, right, to give bowl projections. Not one of those 16 had LSU in the Sugar Bowl. The Sugar Bowl will get the SEC's best team that's not in the college football playoff. They'll get the highest ranked team by the college football playoff. And to me, LSU wins this week. 2 things still have to happen. LSU has to beat A&M, and then I think Alabama needs to beat Georgia by more than 10 in the college football playoff. In the SEC championship game. Then what you'll have is the college football playoff committee having to decide who to put higher, LSU with 2 losses or Georgia with 2 losses, knowing that the Sugar Bowl's on the line, and LSU beat Georgia by 20.
Right.
To me, you've got a 2-loss team and a 2-loss team. The tiebreaker has to be the head-to-head. LSU won by 20. So I think, because I think Alabama's going to beat Georgia big in the SEC championship, I think LSU beats A&M. I think they're coming to the Sugar Bowl, and I think that's an amazing reward for a team that didn't have big expectations.
I don't know anybody except maybe Sean Vazan that predicted LSU to win more than 6 games this year. And I think it's a credit to Coach Ogeron because I think he had a stigma attached to him. People were like, oh, he's a great rah-rah guy. And who wouldn't run through a wall for that guy?
Right.
I mean, he's an amazing motivator. But I think he showed this year that he learned something from watching Les Miles in that I got to step back out of the way and let my coordinators do their job. Now, I have my concerns about LSU going forward, but when you're a 9-win team right now and you're approaching 10, you have nothing to complain about. And it kills me that LSU fans are still complaining, oh, well, we should have had more than 10 wins. Well, did you think they'd get more than 7 wins before the season started? This is a young football team with a lot of talent that played over themselves this year. Played well against Georgia, didn't play nearly well enough against Alabama. Sometimes they didn't show you enough against teams like Rice and Southeastern until late. There are a lot of question marks about them, but enjoy what you have right now, because at no point before the season started did you think you'd be getting this point right now. Joe Burrow's been good enough. Their offensive line hasn't been good enough for me. They have question marks, but again, you're a 9-win football team approaching 10 wins. That's pretty darn good considering what you thought they'd be.
Well, let's stay with the question marks for a moment, because again, it reared its ugly head against Arkansas. The offense. Once again, Ensminger may not be the guy. We talked about it a little bit last week on this show. We talked about it on the radio show. If you're Orgeron, do you really take a look at 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years?
Well, look, to me, the first thing is, the way Nick Saban wins isn't necessarily with X's and O's. He's not a bad X's and O's coach. He just has infinitely better talent than everyone else he plays. I mean, just look at the numbers of his guys that go to the NFL. I mean, it's crazy. The one thing about this LSU offense, okay, and I know they have a couple of wide receivers, Jamar Chase and Terrace Marshall, who are 5-star recruits. They have not gotten there yet. This group of wide receivers and Justin Jefferson has been a pleasant surprise, but there is no DJ Chark, there's no Jarvis Landry, there's no Odell Beckham. It is an under-talented group of receivers. It's an under-talented group of backs. It is a not very good offensive line.
That's the key.
And it's a quarterback that's been okay and is okay in general. The talent level on the offense, I think they have gotten about them. I mean, there's 2 ways to look at it. Andrew Doak and I argue about this in a good way, and he'll say they haven't taken enough chances, they haven't taken enough shots, haven't opened up the offense enough. And what I'll say is, you know what? For the talent level, they've done a nice job of disguising their obvious deficiencies and winning with a subpar offense. They've done, I think, a good job of coaching what is not a great offense from a talent level. And I think if you look at LSU's draftable players over the last 10 years, this offense will go down as the weakest they've had in the last decade. So you got to recruit better. LSU's got a great recruiting class coming in. You're going to have to recruit better. But this offense, no matter who coached it, was going to be okay at best. So it is not a real talent.
You don't think it's scheme, you think it's players.
Well, this year. Yeah, look, I don't think scheme has necessarily helped a great deal, but I am positive that this is probably the least talented LSU offense that we've seen in the last decade. And I think when you get to the draft, it'll pan out. You'll see nobody really drafted, nobody getting a lot of interest, whereas every other LSU offense has had a couple of guys.
Juan, talk about that.
So I'm going to agree with you and disagree with you. I agree with you. This is the least talented offensive line they've had. And the reason why last year they had to suspend some players, kick them off the team. They're not playing at Southeastern.
You got guys that went to the pros, you didn't think were going to pros.
You had to find offensive linemen from JUCO, which is something they haven't really had to done much in the last year. That takes time to come together. But where I disagree with you is that a lot of the players LSU brought in this year as freshmen, those are the same kids that Alabama went after.
No, I get it.
The difference in LSU and Alabama is coaching. Because Alabama gets the same players, but they coach them up at a different level. There's an expectation at Bama that's not at LSU. We can talk about we want to win championships. At Alabama, it's an expectation to win, or you don't play here. Guys going with a different mentality at Alabama, and they tell them from day one, I imagine, that if you can't cut it here, we're trying to win champions. We don't care about that. We want the SEC championship, but national championship is what we're all about here. And so these guys play up to that level at Alabama. It's the same guys that LSU's recruiting. Jamar Chase,
Jamar Chase and Terrace Marshall for sure.
Alabama one of them.
Sure.
So my point is that Jamar Chase and Terrace Marshall should have been doing very well at LSU if they got the right kind of coaching up to do that. I'm not a fan of Steve Ensminger. I think the offense is too boring. I think it's too conservative. But based on what they have to work with in an offensive line, they can't take shots down the field every time because they can't protect the quarterback.
And 4 of Alabama's starting 5 offensive linemen will get drafted.
Absolutely.
And LSU's
will not.
LSU's will.
And if you got to max protect every down, you're not going to have more than one guy going out into a battle.
You might as well go back to Les Miles, 2 yards in the crowd that does offense.
And Ed Ingram, who was the best offensive lineman, had legal issues off the team. There's been a lot of factors that have.
But I would love to see them, Doug, get away from Ensminger. I like the fact that they went out and got them an offensive coordinator from a different university, a different style of offense, but they didn't give him a chance because Ed Orgeron would not get out of the way and let him put his offense in. It may not have worked. Matt Canada, it may not have worked, but you didn't give it a real chance to see if something different would work in this conference against these teams. It was entirely different from what they were used to. That was when Ed Orgeron would not get out of the way, like Les Miles would not get out of the way of his offensive coordinator. They need to get somebody in there with a more progressive thinking offense. Get out of this running back, two set in the running back. I don't like their offense, and I don't like Steve Ensminger and how he runs the offense. I think it's way too conservative.
Yeah, and I do think I think what happened was Les Miles brought in Matt Canada, listened to everybody, brought in the guy who had put up the great numbers, supposedly one of the most innovative guys, and from day one they did this.
Clashed,
Never got along, they clashed, it was terrible, and Ed Orgeron almost lost his job on the basis of that. So I think what you saw happen at the end of last year was you saw Ed Orgeron say, you know what, if I'm going to go down, I'm at least going to go down with my guy.
Which is what he should do.
Somebody I feel comfortable with.
Somebody I feel comfortable. I'm not going to go down because I'm bringing in somebody that I can't get along with, that I think is not, you know, if you're going to go down with your friends. And I don't disagree with Juan. I think they could do a lot more on offense. I don't know if any coach could do more with the talent level that they have on this offense this year. But I don't disagree. And look, if he went out, I think if he went out and found an offensive coordinator, Steve Ensminger would be happy with that. He would go back to being a position coach, and he'd be cool with that too. And maybe this year, Ed Orgeron does that. Maybe this year bought him enough cachet, especially if he wins 10 games, gets to the Sugar Bowl. I mean, maybe this year bought him enough cachet where he can go do that. But I think that's what happened. The Matt Canada thing imploded so bad on him that he said, you know what? If I'm gonna lose, if I'm gonna get fired, okay. But at least I'm getting fired with my friend next to me.
I kind of agree with Doug. Do you think, again, if they get to 10 wins, if they get to a New Year's Six Bowl game or back into a playoff game, if, again, they can corral this 2019 recruiting class?
They can't back into a playoff game.
You don't?
No chance.
No chance at all?
No chance.
Okay.
They lost by Alabama too bad that I'm convinced that if it came down to it, they would flop Washington State over them, they'd flop Central Florida over them. They would not put a two-loss. Maybe they would put a two-loss team.
Even with that strength of schedule?
No, even with the strength of schedule.
I don't think
LSU's
looked good enough.
I don't
be
need
a top 4 team.
29-0 to Alabama, and it wasn't.
It wasn't even that close. It wasn't even that close.
Right.
I watched the Alabama game, and I could watch it again and again and again. And at no point did I ever think LSU was going to score a touchdown. At no point at all.
They could play 12 quarters, and they weren't going to score.
What about the cachet? What about, again, the possibility, 10 wins, New Year's Day Six Bowl, 2019 recruiting class? This could be a top class. Does he have the cachet to change your offensive coordinator out and not get a lot of flack from the fans or from the administration?
Well, I think if the fans are being honest with themselves, they're going to say, you know what, our offense needs to be better. I mean, we didn't score any points against Alabama, and the Citadel did. I think there's an understanding amongst his fan base, and if you're sitting in the LSU coaching office, as Ed Orgeron, you got to say we've got to be a better offense. We've got to be a more productive offense. We can't struggle scoring points against Southeastern. We can't struggle scoring points against teams that Alabama is beating by 50 points. We have to be more effective on the offensive side of the ball. I think you're right. I think Ensminger wouldn't be upset going back to a positional coach.
I don't think so.
Take the pressure off of him, and he's good at that job. I think they need to be a little bit more innovative. And I think what happened also with the whole Canada thing, you talked about how this guy is a fantastic offensive mind before the season started. And all of a sudden, you don't like how he's calling plays. I think Matt Canada said, you know what, you brought me in here to be something different, and you're not letting me be different. So it wasn't going to work out. Right. Either you bring a guy in to coach offense and let him have the reins of the offense and show you what he can do, or you don't. And that's what got Les Miles in trouble. If Les Miles had just bent a little bit and let his coordinators do their job, he'd still be there. Well, fans would be still complaining about winning 10 games a year, but he'd still be there.
Speaking of, we'll get to Miles in a moment, but contract extension for Orgeron.
Oh, for Orgeron.
Yes or no? I mean, 2 years left on the deal. With recruiting coming up, would you give him another 2 years?
I mean, I think he's done some good things. Look, I think they've maximized the talent they have. He's got a good recruiting class. I think I would probably wait. I mean, if somebody's got 2 years left on the contract, I'm not sure why.
Some will say they'll negative recruit against him because, again,
well, it hadn't worked yet.
Right. Well, they've been
it hadn't worked this year.
It
hadn't worked this year.
I don't think it happened. But also, playing in LSU's favor, no one's knocking down his door to get him.
Wow, that was my point on the radio show.
I think he's a good football coach, but no one's saying, "Yo, we got to have Ed Orgeron come coach our team next year."
No, I think this is his last job.
Yeah,
or maybe not his last job, but
right.
yeah, he's not. LSU's not a stepping stone for him to go someplace else. If he loses his job,
if you're LSU,
do
you give him an extension? But maybe again, the buyout is in favor of LSU because he still has things to prove. Or again, at this point, you know what? You still need to prove it to us.
I think based on the Les Miles buyout, Ed Orgeron's buyout is always going to be in favor of LSU. I think that that Ed Orgeron has bought himself a little bit more time here. I mean, he took a team this year that wasn't supposed to go more than 500, and he's got them almost.
Well,
and
he kept the team together again
that
as an
will
interim.
help him. The recruiting is going to help, but again, I don't care if you get 10 5-star recruits in there, Eric.
Right.
If you can't get them to play at a level where Alabama's getting them to play,
right.
I don't think LSU will ever beat Alabama as long as Ed Orgeron's coaching the team. I don't think they'll beat them. Nothing against Ed Orgeron. I just don't think when you match the the coaches head to head, I think Nick Saban is far and above a better coach than anybody in America. He should have his contract written that whenever someone gets a higher contract than me, I get $1 extra. Because who's won championships more than him?
Right.
Every year.
Guys, how big is this weekend? I mean, I think it's huge. As I mentioned, 10 wins. You got a chance at the New Year's Six Bowl game. But the other part of that is Jimbo Fisher's at College Station now, and he recruits Louisiana.
Yeah.
This is big for recruiting as well.
Yeah, not just he recruits Louisiana. LSU recruits Houston.
Right.
Houston might be LSU's single biggest area just because a number of kids coming out of that huge city that can play. Look, and I don't think they can get a New Year's Six. They're guaranteed a New Year's Six Bowl if they win.
Right.
They're number 7 in the college football playoff. There's no way you could not be there.
True.
And again, I think if they win Saturday night, I think it's 80% that they get to the Sugar Bowl because I do think Alabama beats Georgia by 2 or 3 touchdowns, and I do think a 2-loss team and a 2-loss team, they go with who won, and that game wasn't close. LSU beat Georgia by 20, and that might have been Ed Orgeron's best game as LSU's coach, was that game. I mean, LSU's had some great moments this year. It's a huge game for LSU because the difference is if you lose that game, then all of a sudden you're taking 4 steps back in a bowl game and in perception and in what you're trying to do.
It's last year all over again after the Notre Dame loss.
Correct, and that wasn't great. Yeah,
right.
I think it's huge for LSU for all those reasons, but a lot of it, look, Caleb Von Chasson, who may be the most talented guy on the team but is not playing this year, came from Houston. Houston is the area they want to go after big time.
He's certainly the most important player on that defense, and we found out very quickly how much they miss him.
Yeah.
I think it's an important game for LSU. I think, the thought of getting the 10 wins this year when you didn't think you get half this almost, I think it's a big deal for them. I think it's awesome, obviously important for recruiting in that area. But I wouldn't be so disappointed if they got 9 wins this year because, again, you didn't think you'd get there. And I think LSU is such an attractive bowl team in terms of fans. LSU fans would go anywhere that the next best bowl would love to have them because they know they're going to sell it out because LSU fans are going to follow.
And let me say the one thing, and you did say this, and I agree that LSU hasn't been able to coach guys up, but that this year has been 100% on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, Grant Telpin has become the best safety in college football this year. Right. They've gotten great play from Jacob Phillips, the linebacker from Nashville, who has taken a major step forward. Braden Fehoko. Right. They've got a bunch of guys that have taken major steps forward on defense, and you see it. There hasn't been anyone on offense who has taken a major step forward. That's the big difference.
Listen, and Jefferson, not Jordan, Justin Jefferson, the third Jefferson.
Yeah, I call him Jordan every time.
Yeah. When he is your best receiver, and no knock against him, I think he's fantastic. When he is your best receiver and you got all these 5 stars, that's a problem.
Yeah, I would agree.
He can't be your best receiver. He cannot be Joe Burrow's go-to guy. Right. When you've got all these other 5 stars on the team.
2 5-star guys from last year.
That's my problem with LSU's offense. The guys they brought in here to contribute right away have not contributed right away. Right. And that's why they are where they are, which is, I think, a level below, way below Alabama.
Les Miles walks away from $6.5 million. He renegotiates that buyout to $1.5 with LSU, gets a $2.75 million contract to coach Kansas. Your thoughts?
Well, Okay.
Well, I mean, first of all, 65 years old, why?
Well, look, everybody gets the
Football
itch.
coach is always a football coach.
Yeah,
Right?
at 65 years old, you want to think you're not done.
No.
You want to think
but
you
you
still
got
have something to offer.
$4.5 million
Okay, and I'll
coming
say
in.
this. I'm believe me, I'm not the financial whiz here, but the $1.5 million up front is worth more than $1.5 million if you spread. You know what I mean? That's what you always do with the lotto, right? You take it up front. So getting 1.5 up front is a big deal.
Yeah, but it was 6.5 over
It was
time.
6.5 spread way out.
Right.
So 1.5 up front. Granted, he's given up some money. Yeah, he wants to coach.
Right.
Les Miles is fun. He'll recruit well. Hopefully, he'll keep the New Orleans guy. Look, that roster, the Kansas roster, has 10 Louisiana
Tony Hull,
guys
right?
on because of Tony Hull.
It's going to increase.
Right, and that number's going to increase. The first thing, if I was him, was I would talk to Tony Hull and say, I really want you to stay. I would go call Corian Harris and Puka Williams and get all the Louisiana guys in a room and say, because they are the most talented guys on that team, say, we want you all to stay here. And I'd use the connections in Louisiana. Look, this is a stretch, but what Tim Rebowe has done at Nichols is almost a small blueprint for what Les Miles could do in a recruiting standpoint. Tim Rebowe is a guy, and what they've done at Nichols is absurd.
It's unreal.
A guy, 30 years of coaching, has somehow never coached outside of the state of Louisiana, right? From Destrehan High. His first job's at Destrehan High. He has all these Louisiana connections. His roster is all Baton Rouge to New Orleans, down south along the river. 80-something guys from within an hour and a half of his campus. So many of those guys get passed on by LSU. And after LSU, it becomes a big gap between other people. Tulane's not recruiting a lot of them. There is an opportunity for Les Miles, with his relationship with high school coaches, to not get the guys that Ed Ogeron wants. LSU's going to get first pick, but LSU's going to take, 15 guys?
Right.
Tim Rebowe's got a roster of 80. Sully Lesh, first team All-Southland Conference today, was a guy that Tim Detillier at Lutcher called Tim Rebowe and said, I got a kid that's good enough to play in the SEC, that they're not recruiting because he's 2 inches too short, that will be a star for you. He's been a star since day one. And I think Les Miles, if he's smart, could borrow some of those guys and be a better team in the Big 12 than Kansas has been forever.
Because he's going to get the big uglies from Kansas, right?
He can get the big uglies from
Which
Kansas.
is fine. You work on your trenches players in Kansas, Nebraska,
Come Louisiana.
places like that. Come Louisiana,
In
get
Texas.
the speed guys. Les Miles, Tony Hull. They will be a married couple, basically.
Agreed.
If you don't keep Tony Hull on your staff, that's your first big mistake.
Yeah.
Because he's already been able to, without dealing with Louisiana people on the staff there now, he's been able to grab players from Warren Easton, some of the better players in the city, and say, look, you can play right away here. Look at what Puka Williams is doing here.
Right.
I told my guys tonight on our show, I said, look, I give Les Miles 3 years in there in the bowl game. You think about what Kansas has done. They haven't had a winning season since 2008. They've won 3-33 over the last 3 years. They've been as bad a football team as you can find in America. He's walking in. Success for them is winning three games in the first year, probably 4 games.
Yeah.
And if you get to 6 wins by year number 3, they're throwing a parade for him. It's not impossible because Les Miles has connections in this state.
Yes.
It's like Sean Vazan said today, when he talks to your mama, you're going to school there.
Yeah.
Because Les Miles is
close.
a family, he can close the deal. Now, the key for him is, one, getting players in there from here, getting speed guys from here, and then getting the heck out of the way and let his coaches do their coaching. His coaching staff is going to be very important. His ability to change the offensive style, more so than the SEC, because in the Big 12, they throw it.
Yeah.
Yep.
He's got to get away from that 2 yards in the cloud of dust offensive mentality there. If he doesn't, he won't be there long and it won't work.
And I'll say it, those 2 New Orleans guys that I brought up, Puka Williams is from Hahnville.
Right.
Puka Williams and Corian Harris are good enough to play in the NFL.
Yep.
Absolutely.
He's starting with some talent.
Yes.
And those are the kind of guys that LSU can't get to that maybe Mississippi State gets or Ole Miss. Or there's no reason Les Miles at Kansas, especially if there's a little network of Louisiana guys, there is no reason he can't compete for every one of those guys.
I agree with you. Tulane 5-6, 4-3 in the conference, 48-17 loses to Houston's third string last week. It was so frustrating. They're an injured team. You got Ed Oliver and Applewhite arguing at halftime on the field. King, the quarterback, goes out, and the Greenies can't get it done. They got to get it done against Navy on Saturday.
Sounds like a lot of hate to me. You hear that? He's obviously a UNO fan.
I'll tell you what, I watched, as I said on the radio show the other day, I watched every miserable moment of it.
Yeah, it was miserable.
Hard to
watch.
Look,
I do think Tulane has taken a step forward. They haven't taken 4 steps forward, but I do think they've taken a step forward this week. I do think they'll beat Navy and become bowl eligible. The problem is, if you look at the American Conference, right now they have a chance, if SMU wins, to have 8 bowl eligible teams. They only have 7 bowl tie-ins. It is possible to be bowl eligible and not get to a bowl.
Right.
So we'll see how that plays out. But I think Tulane wins. I think they get bowl eligible. I think 6-6 is a solid year. Is it the year Willie Fritz and the team thought they would have at the beginning? I think they thought they'd be better than this. They can be maddening to watch at times. They thought Jonathan Banks was going to be a much better player than he turned out to be. Right? Everybody did. I got to be honest with you. I bought into it a little bit too. He did a lot of good things last year. At this point, he's an afterthought. Justin McMillan will be a quarterback next year. They've taken a step forward. And I think they get bowl eligible. We'll see what happens then, which is a good season for Tulane. Not great, not what they hoped for, but good.
Well, year 3 for Coach. I mean, I think he's gotten what he could ask for out of his team. I thought they should have done better this year. I think Jonathan Banks has been a disappointment with his inability to hold on to the ball. Too many turnovers at the wrong time of the game. But I'm hoping that they've learned their lesson from last year. I still think Jonathan Banks got into the end zone last year.
I do too. I do too.
I think it was clear as day. He never touched the ground. They got hosed in that game. But I think this time around, I think it's set up perfectly for them to do something and to win the game against Navy and to make the playoffs. And I'd be shocked if they don't. I'd be disappointed if they did not become bowl eligible. Right. Because I think for that program, you got one of the nicest stadiums in the state.
Oh, it's
and
beautiful.
Yet they're barely getting that stadium half filled. The students that go to Tulane, the majority of them are not from here. They haven't bought in. They have allegiances elsewhere with other teams. They haven't bought into the football program here. And part of the reason why, because they don't win. No matter where you're from, you go to that school, you want to support a winning football program, especially in New Orleans where there's 20,000 things to do outside of go to a football game that can take your mind away from that. They need to make a bowl game to show to the fan base that we're serious about football here. We're serious about winning here.
I think the good news is the defense has gotten better.
Every
week to week, and again, that's going to carry over to next season. The offensive line has gotten better.
Their running game is fantastic.
Okay, and this is a young Tulane team. And when you look at again what they've lost to the NFL over the last couple of years, again to graduation, this is a young team that I think will get better. This has been a decent year for them. Granted, they've let some drop they shouldn't have. This is huge against Navy on Saturday, just for the psyche of the program.
Yeah, no question about it, because you haven't taken a step forward if you don't beat Navy. Navy, look, this is not the Navy team that we've seen. Yeah, over the last 10 years, Navy's been a really good football program. This team is not a great Navy team. I think Tulane will take care of business, and I think it'll be a good year uptown. I like Willie Fritz. I like a lot of the things about what he does. He started behind the 8 ball, having to recruit here without having a lot of connections. He's starting to get more local kids, at least interested. He's at least in the hunt for more local kids. Look, this area, and I talk about Tim Rebo's area, and I'm telling you, Tim Rebo's got 15 guys on his roster that could be playing for Tulane that are certainly good enough to play in that conference. It's why Tim Rebo has won the Southland Conference. As he gets more ingrained here, you want to see this recruiting class of a few more local guys. We produce speed guys, cornerbacks, safeties, wide receivers, running backs, like maybe Miami, but no place else in the country besides Miami. He's got to start getting some of those guys.
Agreed.
What's helped them, obviously, it's at Nichols, is, well, listen, I wonder how long Tim Rebo is going to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. If you can win at Nichols, and no disrespect to them, that's a tough place to recruit.
Very tough.
But he's turned it into a school where players that go off to Arizona from Louisiana or go off to Nebraska don't like the setting there because they're too far from home. We know New Orleans kids want to stay here. They have a place to come back to, and Nichols has become that place to come back to and play. That's what Tim Rebo's done for that program there. Chase Ford kid, I wonder what kind of pro prospect he'll be. I think he can make a roster as far as a practice squad. But I think he's taken advantage of what's here. He's gotten some speed guys on that team as well. But what he's also told to the players, and what I think players are starting to realize, is that You don't have to go to LSU. You don't have to go to Miami. You don't have to go to Nebraska. You don't have to go to these big schools to make that jump to the NFL, because Ladarius Webb made it from Nicholls State to the NFL and had a fantastic career. You can make it from here as well, and that's what's getting across to the players.
Yeah, look, I went to the River Bell Classic. It's one game that I love to go to, and I interviewed Tim when it was done, and I asked him, I said, because I was laughing, I said, look, I'm looking at your roster. It's like 90 guys from here. And he said, look, it is a lot of guys who everyone said were a step too slow or an inch too short, but they're all good football players, and they're all looking for a place to play. And he said, come on down. And he has put together a terrific roster. He's done a good job of opening up the offense. Chase Forcade came in at the perfect time. He's now the Southland Conference Player of the Year. He has put together a roster of all South Louisiana teams. He's got a Rummel kid that's all Southland Conference. He's got a South Terrebonne kid that's all Southland Conference. Sully Lesh is from Lutcher, is all Southland Conference. He's got a kid from Riverside. He's
taking advantage of kids who don't want to leave.
Kids who don't want to leave, kids who LSU's not looking at, that Mississippi State says they're too short.
Should be looking at.
That Tulane definitely could be. No question that I think Les Miles is going to be on the phone with a lot of these kind of kids, and he's done a great job. And I will say about Tim, I know last year he wanted the UL Lafayette job when it came open. That job had paid $1 million a year, and that's, look, who can blame him? I think he's making about $275 right now at Nicholls is what he's making. Who can blame him for wanting to take that step? At some point, someone's going to offer him a job like that
after this year,
and he's going to take it. It could be after this year if there's no openings. It could be a couple of years. But what he's done at Nicholls by just being smart and open-minded, the kids love playing for him. He runs a fun offense, and they're winning in a big way. It is a blast to go to games in Thibodaux.
Final subject tonight, the Pelicans. We'll start with you, Juan. Your thoughts on the season?
Well, I mean, I would like to see Alfred Payton back on the court. I think I'm like Alvin Gentry in that I'd like to see this starting five back together and kind of see what they can do. We saw how they started the season. They were very good. But I think without a true point guard on the court, and I love Drew Holiday. I think Drew Holiday's having one of his better years this year. But what I don't like about what Drew has to do this year is handle more of the ball responsibility.
Is everything.
And I feel like he's less effective as a guard when he has to handle the point guard responsibility.
Second in the NBA in assists, which is surprising considering.
He's been really good.
But again, he's also within the top 10 in turnovers as well.
And he's top 5 in minutes played. He's on the court all the time.
All the time. I'd like to see more on the bench, but I do like to pick up Julius Randle. I think he's been fantastic. Triple-double last night. I think Anthony Davis is going to give you what he's going to give you every night. E'Twaun Moore's been a nice surprise this year. He's found his shooting touch. So, but I still think this team is a lower tier playoff team. I think they're a 6 or a 7 or an 8. I think the top echelon of the Western Conference is still as strong as ever. But it's going to be interesting watching what happens in Golden State with this whole Kevin Durant thing with, help me out, the forward, Draymond Green. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that during the offseason. A little bit of friction there. That's not. I mean, winning is what matters at the end of the day. But for those guys and all they do is win, the personalities are starting to come out.
Everybody's waiting for it to crack over there. You got the final word on the Pels.
I think Alvin Gentry has done a nice job of completely reinventing his team. Look, they went into this season with Alfred Payton. They thought they were going to go in with Rajon Rondo and Alfred Payton. So you're going in with one real quality point guard, and then he goes down. So they're 4-0 with Payton off the bat. Then he goes down. They lose a bunch of games trying to figure out what they're doing. Then they come back. Once they figure out, you know what, we can't be that team. We're just going to go big, pound people inside. You saw him do it to San Antonio on Monday.
78 points last night between him and Randall.
So good on the inside against San Antonio. I think Alvin Gentry's done a nice job of reinventing the team from with Payton to then no point guard. And Holiday hasn't been, that's not what he's meant to do. But that's not him. Yes. Once you get, I'm curious, once they get Payton back, and they say it's about 6 weeks, once you get him back by January, that's plenty of time to catch a run. Let's see how good they can be, because they were playing at a really high, I mean, they went to Houston in the opener.
The first 4 games were incredible.
And crushed, the first 4 games I'm thinking, holy moly, this team's going to be way better than we think. Then he goes out and they're terrible. And then so Alvin Gentry's done a nice job of holding it together without Payton. Now it is Del Demp's responsibility that they came into the season with one guy who can do that job. Ideally, you would have had 2. So that's on them for not having somebody else who can do it. But I want to see what they do when Peyton comes back.
Doug Mouton, Juan Kincaid, thanks so much for being with us tonight on Inside New Orleans Sports. Happy Thanksgiving to you.
Happy Thanksgiving.
There you go. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this program each every Friday night right here on WLAE-TV at 10 p.m. Also statewide on Pelican Sports Television. That's 9 o'clock on Fridays. Catch me on the radio, Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2 and the iHeartRadio app. That is noon to 2. And you can check us out on the website, ericasher.com, where you can download the podcast at your leisure, listen live, and you can check all the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports at ericasher.com as well. Again, special thanks to our guests, Doug Mouton of Channel 4 Sports, Juan Kincaid of Channel 8 Sports, and of course the WLE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Alex Chacon, and my director, William Hill. Happy Thanksgiving to all. We'll see you guys next week for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.